Which of these comprise the intermediate layers of a neutron star? Neutrons in solid waste, neutrons in superfluid state, only neutrons, or neutrons in fluid state? The intermediate layers are mostly neutrons and are probably in a superfluid state. Earth is the third planet from the Sun. Which planet is seventh from the Sun? Saturn, Pluto, Uranus, or Neptune? Uranus is the seventh planet from the Sun. The atmosphere in Mars is mostly composed of helium, nitrogen, oxygen, or carbon dioxide. Mars is mostly composed of 95% by volume of carbon dioxide. For how long did the first artificial satellite Sputnik 1 stay in Earth's orbit? 6 months, 3 years, 1 year, or 3 months? Sputnik 1 burned up on January 4, 1958, while re-entering Earth's atmosphere, after 3 months, 1,440 completed orbits of the Earth. With which U.S. spacecraft did Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin, Jr. land on the Moon? Apollo 7, Apollo 17, Apollo 11, or Apollo 13? Apollo 11, U.S. spaceflight during which Commander Neil Armstrong and Lunar Module pilot Edwin Aldrin, Jr., on July 20, 1969, became the first people to land on the Moon and walk the lunar surface. What is the outermost region of the Sun's atmosphere called? Penumbra, chromosphere, corona, or core? The Sun's corona is the outermost part of the Sun's atmosphere. The corona is usually hidden by the bright light of the Sun's surface. What is a group of old stars closely packed in a symmetrical form called? Galactic cluster, globular cluster, star cluster, or open cluster? Globular cluster, a large group of old stars that are closely packed in a symmetrical, somewhat spherical form. What is the name of the first space tourist? Richard Garriott, Mark Shuttleworth, Greg Olson, or Dennis Tito? Upon his return to Earth from the International Space Station on May 9, 2001, California millionaire Dennis Tito speaks at a press conference about his experience as the world's first space tourist. In which galaxy was a black hole discovered in the year 2017? Comet, M87, IC 1101, or NGC 1300? The image is of the supermassive black hole that lies at the center of the huge Messier 87 galaxy, in the Virgo galaxy cluster. The amount of light emitted by an object in a unit of time is known as thermal radiation, starlight, blackbody radiation, or luminosity. Luminosity, in astronomy, the amount of light emitted by an object in a unit of time. What is the surface of the Moon made of? iron and copper, rock and metal, dirt, or grass. The surface of the moon is made of rock and metal. When was Pluto removed from the list of planets? 2006, 2003, 2000, or 2008? In August 2006, the International Astronomical Union, IAU, downgraded the status of Pluto to that of dwarf planet. What is the visible part of the Sun called? The lithosphere, the photosphere, the atmosphere, or the stratosphere? The photosphere is the visible surface of the Sun. When did the space age begin? 1941, 1969, 1957, or 1999? On October 4, 1957, the Soviet Union opened the space age with the launch of Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite. How many moons are there in the Milky Way? 20, 200, 109, 9. There are 200 moons in the Milky Way. The instance when the Sun is exactly above the equator and day and night are equal length is called winter solstice, vernal equinox, beginning of spring, or summer solstice. Vernal equinox, 2 moments in the year when the Sun is exactly above the equator and day and night are of equal length. The number of terrestrial planets in the solar system is 8, 4, 6, or 2. In our solar system, there are 4 terrestrial planets, which also happen to be the 4 closest to the Sun: Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars. What is the scientific term used for the twinkling of stars? Parallax, scintillation, refraction, or albedo? The scientific term for twinkling is scintillation. Which planets do not have a natural satellite? Uranus and Venus, Mercury and Venus, Mercury and Saturn, or Mercury and Neptune? Mercury and Venus have no natural satellites. Which year is Halley's comet expected to return to the solar system? 2061, 2086, 2110, or 2045? Halley was last seen in Earth's skies in 1986 and was met in space by an international fleet of spacecraft. It will return in 2061 on its regular 76-year journey around the Sun. Which type of star is the Sun classified? G2V star, F-type star, K-type star, or a type star? The Sun is a G2V type star, a yellow dwarf, and a main sequence star. What 2 motions do all planets have? Wiggle and wobble, twist and shout, rock and roll, or orbit and spin. All planets have two types of motion, known as orbit and spin. Planets in our solar system all orbit the Sun. Every 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4.1 seconds, the Earth spins once around its axis. Approximately how many miles, or kilometers, are there in a light year? 590,000, 950,000 kilometers. 5.9 billion, 9.5 billion kilometers. 5.9 trillion, 9.5 trillion kilometers. Or 5.9 million, 9.5 million kilometers. Since light travels at slightly more than 186,000 miles, 300,000 kilometers per second, 1 light year is roughly equal to 5.9 trillion miles, 9.5 trillion kilometers. How many times larger is the radius of the Sun than that of the Earth? 10. 4.8. 1025. Or 109. By diameter, Sun is 109 times diameter of Earth. The day on which the Sun's direct rays cross the celestial equator is called the aphelion, the solstice, the ecliptic, or the equinox. The March equinox marks the moment the Sun crosses the celestial equator, the imaginary line in the sky above the Earth's equator, from south to north. Which of these objects is the farthest from the Sun? Saturn, Kuiper belt, Neptune, or 90377 Sedna? Sedna, or simply Sedna, is a large planetoid in the outer reaches of the solar system that was, as of 2020, at a distance of about 85 astronomical units from the Sun, about 3 times farther than Neptune. What term describes the alignment of 3 celestial bodies? Sizzle, syzygy, symbology, or suzerainty? Syzygy is a roughly straight-line configuration of 3 or more celestial bodies in a gravitational system. What is the smallest planet in the solar system by mass? Mars, Jupiter, Mercury, or Earth? Mercury is the smallest planet with a mass of 3.285 times 10 to the power of 23rd kilogram. What makes a planet a dwarf planet? Size and shape, distance from the Sun, smell, or color. Dwarf planet is a celestial body that orbits the Sun, has enough mass to assume a nearly round shape, has not cleared the neighborhood around its orbit, and is not a moon. Which is the name of a radio source that is very far from Earth? Phaser, tracer, quasar, or taser? Quasars appear faint when viewed from Earth. They are visible from extreme distances, being the most luminous objects in the known universe. Which planet's axis is almost parallel to its orbital plane, making it spin nearly on its side? Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, or Uranus? Uranus's axis lies almost parallel to its orbital plane, which means that the planet spins nearly on its side, its poles taking turns pointing toward the Sun as the planet travels in its orbit. What is the nucleus of a comet made of? Ice, dust, and organic materials. Radio waves. Helium and water. Or fire. A comet's nucleus is like a snowball made of ice. As the comet nears the Sun, the ice starts to melt off, along with particles of dust. Which spacecraft was Laika, the first living creature sent into space? Vostok 1, Apollo 11, Sputnik 2, or Sputnik 3? The first animal to make an orbital spaceflight around the Earth was the dog Laika, aboard the Soviet spacecraft Sputnik 2 on November 3, 1957. Who was the first person to enter outer space twice? Vladimir Komarov, Yuri Gagarin, Christina Koch, or Scott Kelly? Vladimir Komarov was the first Soviet cosmonaut to fly in space twice when he was selected as the solo pilot of Soyuz 1, its first crewed test flight. In which year did the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster take place? 1967, 1986, 2003, or 1983? Columbia disaster, breakup of the U.S. Space Shuttle orbiter Columbia on February 1, 2003, that claimed the lives of all 7 astronauts on board just minutes before it was to land at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. In total, how many space flights were carried out by Spacelab? 25 flights, 50 flights, 40 flights, or 20 flights? "25 flights were made with Spacelab for astronomical, solar, microgravity, life sciences, and materials sciences research." In 1921, Albert Einstein received the Nobel Prize for Physics for which of his following work? Relativity theory, photoelectric effect, neutrino oscillations, or physical cosmology? The Nobel Prize in Physics 1921 was awarded to Albert Einstein for his services to theoretical physics, and especially for his discovery of the law of the photoelectric effect. When was the first extrasolar planet discovered? 1758, 1990, 1995, or 1992? In 1992, astronomers discovered the first exoplanet, or planet outside our solar system. But it didn't come in any form they'd really anticipated. What is the minimum speed of a meteoroid when it enters Earth's atmosphere? 55,000 miles per hour, 20,000 miles per hour, 25,000 miles per hour, or 35,000 miles per hour? When a meteoroid enters Earth's atmosphere, it is traveling at very high velocity, more than 11 kilometers per second, 25,000 miles per hour, at minimum, which is many times faster than a bullet leaving a gun barrel. Who was the first female commander of the International Space Station, ISS? Peggy Whitson, Christina Koch, Eileen Collins, or Valentina Tereshkova? Peggy Whitson was the first female commander of the International Space Station, ISS, and who holds the record among American astronauts and among women for spending the most time in space. Which was the first spacecraft to have a hard landing on another celestial object? Luna 3, Luna 25, Luna 1, or Luna 2? Luna 2, in making a hard landing on the lunar surface, was the first spacecraft to strike another celestial object. The first satellite to operate in geostationary orbit is Skylab, Syncom 2, Sputnik 1, or Mir. Syncom 2, the first satellite in a geosynchronous orbit, an orbit that has a period of 24 hours, but is inclined to the equator, was launched successfully on July 26, 1963. In which year did Soviet cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova become the first woman travel to space? 1961, 1965, 1963, or 1957? Valentina Tereshkova was the first woman to travel into space. On June 16, 1963, she was launched in the spacecraft Vostok 6, which completed 48 orbits in 71 hours. Who discovered the laws of planetary motion? Galileo, Copernicus, Newton, or Kepler? German astronomer Johannes Kepler, whose analysis of the observations of the 16th-century Danish astronomer Tycho Brahe enabled him to announce his first two laws in the year 1609, and a third law nearly a decade later, in 1618. What is the dark center of a sunspot called? Umbra, filament, dark spot, or penumbra? Sunspots have a lighter outer section called the penumbra, and a darker central region named the umbra. What are the clouds of interstellar gas and dust that emit light in different colors called? Dark nebulae, reflection nebulae, emission nebulae, or planetary nebulae? An emission nebula is a nebula formed of ionized gases that emit light of various wavelengths. Which type of telescope is used for examining the Moon and other planets of the solar system? Reflecting telescope, Schmidt telescope, catadioptric telescope, or refracting telescope? Refracting telescopes. Commonly known as refractors, telescopes of this kind are typically used to examine the Moon, other objects of the solar system such as Jupiter and Mars, and binary stars. Which of these was discovered in the year 1998 using type law supernovae? Star cluster, dark energy, black hole, or dark matter? In 1998, dark energy was discovered using type law supernovae. Which astronomer formulated the modern Big Bang theory? Edwin Hubble, Carl Sagan, George Lemaitre, or William Herschel? George Lemaitre, Belgian astronomer and cosmologist who formulated the modern Big Bang theory, which holds that the universe began in a cataclysmic explosion of a small, primeval superatom. The donut-shaped zones of highly energetic charged particles trapped at high altitudes in the magnetic field of Earth are known as Van Allen radiation belt, magnetosphere, magnetoshelf, or magnetopause. Van Allen radiation belt, donut-shaped zones of highly energetic charged particles trapped at high altitudes in the magnetic field of Earth. When did the steady-state theory, an alternative theory to the evolution of the universe, emerge? 1955, 1941, 1948, or 1963? The theory was first put forward in 1948 by British scientists Sir Hermann Bondi, Thomas Gold, and Sir Fred Hoyle. When did the International Astronomical Union adopt the dwarf planet category? 1998, 2009, 2002, or 2006? In 2006, the IAU passed a resolution that defined planet and established a new category, dwarf planet. In which year was the exoplanet Kepler 452b discovered? 2000, 2010, 2005, or 2015? The exoplanet Kepler 452b was discovered in July 23, 2015. What is the acceleration of gravity at Earth's surface? 7.5 meters per second per second, 1.6 meters per second, 9.8 meters per second, or 11.2 meters per second. The acceleration of gravity at Earth's surface is 9.8 meters per second. Which part of the Sun can be seen with the naked eye? Corona, chromosphere, core, or photosphere? The part of the Sun that glows, and that we see with the naked eye, is called the photosphere.